Every 4 years, the Democrats and Republicans, they have these elaborate presidential nominating conventions. These events are basically political theater. Voters have already chosen the nominee. But until 1968, regular voters had no say in who their party nominated for president.
In 1952, 1944, an ordinary voter would just tune in at the convention and say, oh, look who's being nominated.
A few states had primaries, but they were basically meaningless. People called them beauty contests since they had no effect on the nomination. The state Republican and Democratic parties would send a group of voting representatives called delegates to the national convention. Back then, the party bosses would basically tell the delegates under their control which candidate to nominate. And everybody else found out later, in the papers or on TV.
And they thought that this was legitimate. By the way, there were no cries of illegitimacy.
That is, until there were.
What are you trying to strong-arm stuff? He's an elected delegate.
The 1968 Democratic Convention got so crazy, so chaotic, that it paved the way for massive changes in how both parties picked their nominees. Behind the tumult was a growing divide between the Democratic Party and its voters. Liberals were furious with the incumbent President Lyndon Johnson over his support for the Vietnam War. So, two anti-war senators, Eugene McCarthy and Robert F. Kennedy, challenged Johnson for the nomination.
I think the basic fact and the basic lesson, if we learned anything from Vietnam, is that we can't go in and straighten out all of the world with our own military force.
And picked up primary votes throughout the spring. Johnson dropped out.
I shall not seek the nomination of my party for another term as your president.
But then his vice president, Hubert Humphrey, threw his hat in the ring. But Humphrey didn't enter any primaries. And then, around midnight on June 5th, 1968,
Now told that Senator Kennedy was shot as he left the platform from which he made his victory statement over his win here in the California primary.
When the party gathered in August for its convention in Chicago, the delegates nominated Humphrey instead of McCarthy.
I proudly accept the nomination of our party.
They picked the pro-war candidate who hadn't even entered a single primary. And ordinary Democrats were stunned. They felt overruled by party bosses and backroom deals. One group, calling itself the Youth International Party, held its own convention where they nominated a 145-pound pig they named Pegasus. The protests, violence, and confusion all made the party look pretty bad. Humphrey ended up losing the general election to the Republican nominee, Richard Nixon. And afterwards, the Democrats realized that they needed to change the way they picked their nominee. So they made new rules to make the Democratic Party more, well, democratic. Voters in each state would vote in primaries or caucuses. Then at the convention, the delegates from that state would have to cast their ballots based on the results of those contests. The Republican Party made similar changes, and by 1980, primaries had replaced party bosses. So voters got a much bigger say. But is this system perfect? Not at all. Come back for our episode next week where we explain why.
So I want to introduce you to one of the stars of our primary series. This is a political boss who we based off of a real-life machine politician from the late 1800s named Boss Tweed. He was a Democratic machine politician out of New York City, and he's known for a quote. He said, "I don't care who does the electing, so long as I get to do the nominating." That's Boss Tweed. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the rest of our series, Box Explains the Primaries.